Savvy Business Radio, drawing out the best from our guests with our host, Christina Nichman.
Our guests today are Sergei and Vadim. Sergei and Vadim join us today to share their entrepreneurial path and some of the lessons they've learned in creating their successful business and podcast, The Mentors. Find out more and check out their podcast at thementors.co. Hello, Sergei and Vadim. Welcome to Savvy Business Radio. How are you today?
We're doing great, Christina. Thanks so much for having us today. We're excited to talk to you.
Yeah.
I'm so blessed you guys were able to come on out here. I found your wonderful podcast, The Mentors, which really helps bridge entrepreneurs, bring them together so we can all learn and kind of like what we're doing on Savvy here. We have a similar means of bringing businesses together to share their wisdom. And I really loved your energy. You guys are brothers. You come from Russia. You hear no Russian accent. It's completely gone. But you have a wonderful story. And you also have created a number of startups that have been very successful. So I'm happy to have you out here to share your wisdom today. Share a little bit with the audience, a little bit about your background, guys.
Yeah, happy to share, Christina. Vadim and I think we thought we might be entrepreneurs. We thought we might be business owners at a young age, primarily because our father, when he brought us over here with our mom to the States, he essentially ran a small business because that's all he could do because his English wasn't so good. But he had us working at that small business from 12 years old, and we sort of learned the ropes there. It was a business in the shopping mall. Actually, it's a great crash course for learning how to operate a business. And we studied finance in college, and I think got a little bit derailed from our interest. Tried starting a company in college. It was a peer-to-peer ad network that we tried building. Made a lot of classic mistakes that entrepreneurs make by not doing market research and trying to build a product first. And so that business failed, and we decided, hey, we'll get into finance and, we can make money doing finance. And I think very quickly, about a year and a half after college, realized that it's not for us. We need to somehow find our way back to entrepreneurship. And so we tried to figure out how to do that.
Yeah. And, when Sergei says us, we mean it. So we're identical twins, and we kind of followed a similar path for a while. We had the same major in college. We went to the same university. We had the same roommates. And we even had worked at the same company out of college, the same finance job, where we both were pursuing this CFA and realized, there's a lot of interesting opportunities in finance, but we just had that entrepreneurial itch. We had to move on and do something else. We wanted to innovate. We wanted to work with people that kind of had similar minds to us. And so both of us decided to leave finance. And the way for us to get into entrepreneurship was first to learn about it. So we like Sergei said, we did try a business in college that failed. We also actually had another business that we don't talk about a lot, which is a website we had called Cats and Games, where we had pictures of funny cats and flash games, and we made a little bit of money on advertising there. But really just to learn how to put together a website and do search engine optimization and stuff like that. But for us, we always thought the best way to become a good entrepreneur is first to learn A, through your own mistakes, but B, through others as well. And so we decided to get into startups. And the way that we did that is we realized that there's really two paths to get into startups. Either you're building a product or you're selling it and getting customers. And so we decided to do the latter and get into sales and business development. And we spent a bunch of time in our careers doing that. And in the meantime, we were also starting companies.
Wow. This is so inspirational. And what I find interesting, when you mentioned your dad came here and said, well, his English wasn't so good, so he started a business. I find that interesting because a lot of folks who are from here would think, hey, if my English isn't so good, the last thing I would do is start a business. But I find that my parents were immigrants. My dad started a business, but a lot of immigrants come here and they say, okay, I'm just going to start my own business and get into the groove. And it's an interesting way that I find that immigrants come here to build their life, a better life in the United States, is through entrepreneurship.
Well, yeah, I mean, in most countries, and in particular, we come from a former Soviet Union, of course, and in most countries, it's far harder to start a business than it is in the United States. I mean, even just to register a business, you have to jump through hoops and have tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to invest in the business. So when immigrants come to America, and our dad as well, it's the American dream that there's sort of very little friction to getting off the ground. You can start anything you want to as long as you're willing to put in the work and figure it out. And he happened to be working for another Russian guy in the mall and working at one of those kiosks you see in the mall.
Yeah.
And after about 6 months there, he told the guy, listen, how much would you take for this business? And the guy, I think, asked for like, I think 10 grand or 15 grand or something like that. And my dad had a little bit of cash, but he certainly didn't have 15 grand coming to America and starting from nothing. So he offered the guy to pay him some cash and then work for free for 3 or 4 months and basically buy the business that way. And he ended up buying the business from the guy and grew it to 3 shopping malls, 3 carts in each mall, which is a modest business if you think about it. You go to the malls and you see immigrants operating this business, so you think, okay, how much money could they be making? But those businesses helped put us through college and taught us about entrepreneurship. And it was great because he could run it really with only enough English to talk to customers and try to get them to buy stuff. And it was a perfect thing for him because he could operate it himself. And of course, Vadim and I would jump in and at 13 years old, negotiate with insurance companies and banks because he couldn't really speak at that level of English with them. So for us, it was a great learning opportunity.
Wow. And I love that. It gives, what I find that's amazing is that the creativity that allows you in entrepreneurship to take something and make it into a business. And I think that's something that we have greatly here that some people don't realize that how we're so blessed with is the creativity to take something from nothing and make it into a business like your dad. Like, hey, I don't have $15,000. How about I work for free? He took a problem and found a creative solution so that it would work for him.
Yeah, that's actually why, we made it a point when we were thinking about what did we want the focus of our podcast to be, because we've been in entrepreneurship for a while, but, we're also musicians on the side, and in college and in high school, we did theater. And we ended up making our show about entrepreneurship and creators, because entrepreneurship is the process of creating something from nothing. And so, we've had a world champion dancer on our show, and she was a dancer first and foremost all her life, and then started a dance company, just because she had that skill. We had a comedian on our show, and that's a business as well. If you have to book gigs and get out there and perform all the time, you have to get into a process. You have to get customers, so to speak, and people to come to your show. It's a very similar process. So you're absolutely right. I mean, that's why we fell in love with entrepreneurship, and I'm sure that's why our father ended up going that route as well, as it gave him the freedom to create.
Wow. Yeah, it is. And what have you found being a mentor yourself, working to help people out there build their businesses as well? What have you found as some of the misconceptions around entrepreneurship and small businesses?
Yeah, it's interesting. We're lucky enough now that through our work, we're able to work with hundreds of young entrepreneurs. I've been working with a national nonprofit, Venture for America, that helps people start companies in cities like Detroit. Vadim is a lecturer at SUNY Purchase, where he teaches college students how to start companies. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions, and a misconception that we're trying to challenge with our podcast, The Mentors, is that people feel like you need to have experience starting a business. You need to have deep industry expertise to be able to start a business. You need to get an MBA to be able to start a business. And that's just not the case. We talk to and we mentor hundreds of entrepreneurs that start with nothing but a great idea and the drive to start something. I think, of course, you have to be willing to do the work, and you have to understand the industry that you're getting into and the competitive landscape. But oftentimes the most successful entrepreneurs don't come from the industry or don't come from any entrepreneurial background at all. They just have a willingness to create, and they have, like you mentioned, that creativity to do things that maybe won't naturally come to other people, to creative ways to essentially, I guess I would say, level up their experience so they can surpass others faster than maybe they otherwise would be able to by just doing it creatively.
Yeah. And also, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go for it.
Oh, no, I was going to say the other misconception is that, things will kind of come to you and that you'll be successful very quickly.
Yeah.
And that's what draws a lot of people is, the sky's the limit. And of course, that is one of the biggest upside of entrepreneurship. But with that comes a lot of responsibility. With that also comes a lot of uncertainty, and you have to be okay with that. And you have to talk about, the other side of entrepreneurship, which is there's a lot of times where you're not sure if you're doing the right thing. There's a lot of times where you have to just push and continue and persevere through the difficult moments. And that's also why we talk about, co-founders, and why that's really important, to get a team behind what you're doing, to get somebody that you can bounce ideas off of, to get somebody that you can kind of help pull you out of the maybe some of the bad moments that might come from the uncertainty and just problems that come up as you're trying to build a business.
Yeah. And what I gathered from what you just said there is that time factor. There is effort involved. I think that's something I didn't get when I first started, as I said, hey, my perfect lifestyle, what I would like is have my own business where I do what I love, but I get to work a 4-hour work week and get to meditate for an hour, go for walks. And so the first day I started my business, I did that. And then within a month, I was like, okay, not getting any sales, need to up level this a little bit. And there is a good portion of not only risk, but hard work and effort put behind it. But realizing there's also a time factor. It's not like an overnight thing.
Exactly. It's a marathon, not a sprint. I mean, I hate to use that, but it's true. And you have to be willing to kind of push through and just put in the effort, as you said. You can get to a point, lifestyle design or building a lifestyle business where you work maybe a little bit less hours, not 80 or 100 hours, but get to a point where you're working 40 hours. But it'll take a while to get to that. You first need to figure out what's the machine that I'm building that's going to generate revenue, that's going to bring customers, that's going to bring value to those customers. And once you figure out that machine, of course you can hire people, delegate and things like that, but it may take years to get to that point, and you have to be okay with that.
Yes. Yeah. And one thing I got from a guy a couple of years ago we had on, he's now 10 million. He might probably now even more than that, but 10 million when I spoke to him. And he said to me, see, people look at my now results and they think, oh, you just got here. They don't see the 10 years before this. It took me busting my chops here. And so often we'll look at Amazon or any great company and see the end result and think, well, that's what I want. I'm going to get there. But they don't see that took 25 years worth of effort to get to. It wasn't overnight. And so like you said, yeah, you can build that lifestyle eventually that you want and have maybe the freedom financially and otherwise, but it takes the effort on the front end.
Yeah, and I totally 100% agree with you. And you mentioned 4-hour work week, and of course there's the book by Tim Ferriss that I'm sure you read. But Tim put in 100-hour work weeks for several years before he automated his business to that point. And whenever we mentor young entrepreneurs as well, I mean, we spent our 20s, we're 32 now, but we spent our 20s trying a bunch of ideas and trying a lot of different things and failing. And you know what? A lot of times giving up on stuff too. And oftentimes even giving up on things too early. It took us years to develop the kind of discipline to be able to say, you know what? Putting in a couple months into something and expecting to see results is actually probably not the appropriate expectation. So, a lot of times your first business is not going to be the business that's successful, which is why if a 22-year-old or a 25-year-old comes to me and says, I want to start something and I have this great idea, I say, go ahead, do it, because you're probably going to have to fail through this one to get to the one that's going to actually be a success for you. And it takes a lot of, not to use, let's say, a sports cliche, but it takes a lot of at-bats to be able to get to that point.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've come to see failure is a negative thing in our culture, where failure, if you take it and learn from it, is a positive. It's like, yeah, you could fail 10 times, but then eventually get a win. But if you never even try, well, then you never get anywhere.
Exactly. And, for example, Seth Godin is another perfect example. He's written a lot of really popular books, one of which is Purple Cow. But and now he's known as a marketing genius around the world. But if you look at his biography and kind of read up about him, you realize through his 20s and 30s, he failed a lot. And he tried to start the wackiest types of businesses just to succeed. And eventually, he kind of figured out through this path that he knows how to market. And that was the skill that then now he was going to bring to people through a variety of mediums, including becoming an author. And there's countless stories like that of people that, have to kind of fail through and figure things out and experiment. And it's a pretty messy process, and you have to be okay with it.
Colonel Sanders did not start KFC until I think he was 64. And he failed for a very long time and still persevered. So there's something to be said about that.
Exactly. And so you just have to keep moving through it. And you know what? If you might get lucky and your first business might be successful, it definitely happens. Mark Zuckerberg is a perfect example of that. But for a lot of people, it doesn't. And that doesn't mean that you're a failure. It certainly doesn't mean that you don't have the propensity to succeed. It just means that you have to keep on going and moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys said something that was very important in the beginning, which is action. And I think one thing that stops people, I talk to people all the time who have these wonderful ideas, want to start a business, and they say, well, when I read one more book or go to one more workshop on business or get that one more degree, I'll finally be ready. And I think they're looking for a sure way to not have to have that failure instead of just taking the action. Or sometimes I think you guys might have heard the money thing. I'll wait till I have enough money in the bank to get started. Have you come across some of those?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We come across that all the time. And, the thing that we love about action is, whenever we've had moments in our lives where we've been kind of down in the dumps or just haven't seen a lot of results, and we just felt confused and wanted to get out of it, the only thing that has ever helped and the only sort of thing that ever pulled us out of that was some kind of action, reaching out to people, cold or warm, grabbing coffee or lunch with somebody, going to a networking event, whatever it is, thinking of a new strategy and just testing it immediately without thinking too much into it and overthinking it. Whenever we did that, immediately there was some kind of result that we would not have been able to anticipate at all. Without doing it. So that's why we say, you have to take action, and it is getting past that. It's like going to the gym, right? You a lot of times you're like, no, I'd rather stay home and relax and watch Netflix. But once you get to the gym, you feel great. Same, you just have to force yourself to do it. Sometimes there is no magic potion or magic recipe or formula to do this. You just have to force yourself to do it, but you will feel the positive effects of it right away.
And you know what? This is something we come across a lot because we mentor mostly young entrepreneurs, but oftentimes people in college or recently from college and all sorts of demographics and even financial backgrounds or I should say economic situations in these individuals. And time again, one of the biggest issues is people spend so much time doing research or formulating a business plan. And one of the first things that we do with any entrepreneur that we mentor is to sort of reset a little bit and figure out how can you take actionable next steps to either prove that what you're doing has demand in the marketplace, or figure out how you need to change and adjust it in order to actually create a business that can bring you income as fast as possible. So we try to educate the entrepreneur that, listen, what you're doing right now is great because it's providing you the education to give you confidence to move forward. But actually the best education is to try, because every time you create a new business, you're putting on a new creation in the marketplace that you have you can read 100 or 1,000 books. You never know how the market is going to create. So you're wasting your time if you're not trying to put it in the market, even in its barest form. So that's really one of the first pieces of advice, is start going in the market even before you're ready to sell.
And I like that, because it's like action and then cross correct as necessary.
Exactly. And most of the people that are going to be your early customers in the beginning anyway, they're okay with the fact that your product is going to change. They're okay with the fact that your sales model is going to change, whatever it is, right? Depending obviously on the product. And so you have to be okay with taking that early risk. You have to be okay with the uncertainty. And if you're not the kind of person that's okay with uncertainty, then there's other types of businesses you can start, but it might not be for you.
And even with my students in the entrepreneurship class, it's an academic setting. So there's homework that they have to do, and one of the things that they have to do is put together a business plan. But I always believed in the fact that business plans are not the most valuable in the world. But in this case, the way that I positioned to them was, look, you have to do this business plan. It's a 10-page business plan. And we split it up into different sections like marketing plan, product development plan, putting a team together, getting mentors, advisors, investors, whatever it is you need for your business. But I said, treat this business plan. First of all, in college, when I went to school, I had to do a 65-page business plan. And that was just ridiculous. And I purposely made it a 10-page business plan because I told them, look, treat this as an opportunity to become more of a domain expert about what you're doing and just understand the numbers and understand what you might need to do, and also then have materials and data that you can provide to other people. For example, if you're raising money, you will now have a marketing plan that you can show to somebody, but also realize that you have to adjust that plan and it will most likely change completely. So don't think that you're putting together a roadmap right now for exactly how you're building your business by putting together this business plan. It's more so a way for you to learn about it and then have additional resources to fall back on if partners or investors or customers need information, because then you created all this material and messaging and all this stuff that you can fall back on.
Yeah. And it gives you a starting point where you're starting from. Having that up forward, okay, now I know where I'm starting. It's not working, cross correct, see what does work. From further research, you can update your plan.
Exactly. I mean, some research is important. You need to understand something. You need to understand your target customer. Who are you getting after? You need to figure out, how am I going to build value? And there's definitely, I don't want to say that no research, just dive into it and see what happens. It's a combination of both, but don't overthink things too much, because when you do, that's a lot of times what paralyzes you from action.
Yeah, I got that. And when you said earlier, sometimes just taking that action opens up the door to other opportunities that wouldn't have happened had you not just gotten up and taken some action towards your overall result. And that brings to mind for me, we started, I told you in the beginning of the show, doing live shows with networking events attached to it. And when I first started it, some of the people I know when I was first starting my business were like, I think this idea is great, but wait till you have more research or you have more money in the bank. And I said, well, I'm just going to move forward. And one day as I was, first formulating this plan and writing it out and such, I got a call from someone saying, let's meet for coffee downtown in by the Wall Street area. And so I met. And while I was going for coffee with her, I remember there was a place I used to use to rent to have business meetings. And they actually had grown to a bigger office. I knew them very well. I went in there and said, hey, I want to do this type of event, but I have very low cash flow right now. What can we work out? And they said, well, we know you. So, hey, just book the event. When the people come, you can pay us after the event. And so, but that was a whim. I mean, the idea only came because I was moving, taking action, went for coffee, and it just like poof, you know how like a little bubble over your head comes out, you're like, hey, wait a second, that place is down the street. I'm here. Let me go talk to them. And it just, one thing kind of just manifested or fell into another, and bam, we had our first event.
I love that story so much, because it just shows that by going out there and taking that meeting, you actually created a situation for yourself where then you would have to be accountable to somebody else, or accountable because you already asked for the space. Right now, you actually have to make it happen. So taking action begets more action. And there's actually a great book by there's another reason why I love what you did is there's a great book by Damon John called The Power of Broke, where he talks about how oftentimes actually not having a lot of money forces you to be creative in ways that you just would ignore, in ways that would not be apparent to you if you did. Yeah. And so you were forced to ask for, either a free or discounted space. And we've done the same thing. I used to have a meetup that I ran in the city, and I was certainly not going to pay for space, but I ended up getting free space from a lot of places, because sometimes all you have to do is ask or knock on enough doors and you'll get it. We actually, when we started our software business, we had been working from home for about 6 to 8 months, I think, and it was getting a little hard, and we really wanted to get into an office space. We wanted to be surrounded by other startups in the city and hopefully have some of those companies become our customers. And we decided that we need to get into an office space somewhere in the city, but we couldn't afford to spend, $1,000, $2,000 a month, even just for 2 seats somewhere. So we just built a list of, I think, about 200 CEOs of startups in New York City that we figured they must have a couple extra seats that they'll let us use for at least a few months, right? And we reached out to these 200 CEOs, and we actually got about 100 responses.
But we also, in that outreach, we offered value right up front. We said, if you give us some for some free office space, we'll do some sales training for you for free for your whole team.
So we had about 100 CEOs respond. Pretty much most of them very nicely said, no, I'm sorry, we don't have space for you. But we had one guy that emailed us back saying, hey, I might have something for you. Why don't you call me in half an hour on my cell? And good thing I saw that email, because we called him, and 3 hours later we were actually in his office space. Wow. And it turned out he had space, and he was actually an angel investor. And for him, it was a great deal, because he could have us be in his space for free, but observe us, see how we are as founders, and evaluate us as an investment opportunity. And then if we ended up raising money, we would just pay him back what we owed him in rent. So it was a win-win-win for all of us, I think. Yeah. We ended up getting space right in East Village in Cooper Union or Astor Place for, I think, a whole year we were there getting gentlemen working there. So it forces you to be creative. I love that.
Yeah. And the fact that just by taking action, the doors open up. And it's interesting. We had very early on, a couple months out of the door, we had someone on our show that owns a space in Manhattan, and they rent out the office space to entrepreneurs, like WeWorks, but not WeWorks. And they had come on and said, hey, we'd like to talk about our business, blah, blah, blah. So we had them on, and they said, hey, we love what you're doing. And at that point, we just started a meetup like yourselves, where we'd have business owners just share their knowledge and come together as a community. And they said, we'd love to be part of that community. You want to use our space? And see, we weren't even looking at space. We were just doing this online. I was like, well, in person would certainly be nicer. And so we were with them almost 8 months, but it's that kind of just getting out there, connecting, meeting, being with other people, and just taking that action that opens up doors you wouldn't even expect. I wasn't looking for it. You guys were, but the opportunity still showed up just because we're putting ourselves out there.
And even though we were looking for it, we had no idea that the CEO, also turned out to be an investor, and
awesome.
He ended up introducing us to other companies that were then became customers and used our software. So again, this stuff could not be predicted. And I love that these stories came out in this conversation, because I hope the people that are listening, it's going to motivate them to just get out there and try things, because you can't be calculated about everything, and wonderful things can happen if you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I told you, I don't know if it was you guys, I told you earlier that my partner's a pilot. And so we would go to networking events, and sometimes my partner will say, hey, I'd like to go to networking events where it's all pilot related, because, you're not going to meet pilots at a business meeting. I said, well, pilots often, business owners often have pilot license and fly airplanes. And so you might meet a pilot along the way. But the thing is that when you come to an idea that, I won't go here because there won't be the sort of folks I like or want to hang with, you might be missing out on an opportunity, because people know people, and there might just be people you want to connect with there that you wouldn't expect to meet. Wherever it is, even at the gas station or at the laundromat, you might come across people who could be integral partners or integral parts of your business.
Exactly. And, we've met people at networking events or startup events, or just a variety of different types of, places where people come together that then ended up being lifelong friends and even business partners and even customers down the line. And so, these connections that can happen when you put yourself out there can reap dividends years down the line. And again, it's one of those things you cannot anticipate. And even if you're an introvert and typically don't want to put yourself in those situations, get out there and just try talking to people. Don't worry about being awkward. Nobody really cares. Everybody's kind of in their own head anyways.
Yeah.
You might meet amazing people that will open up opportunities again that you could have never predicted otherwise.
And you asked earlier a question about misconceptions in entrepreneurship. We actually truly believe that entrepreneurial skills can be developed and can be learned. Of course, for some people, it's more natural than others, but you just have to figure out what your strengths are and capitalize on them. But I think one of the things that can be learned is this skill of identifying opportunities. You mentioned even if you're at the gas station, you can meet somebody that most people when they're at the gas station, they're not looking to meet people, right? But when you're a business owner, you get really good at trying to sniff out opportunities. And so when you're anywhere, you have your business owner hat on. And so you already start to think of any kind of person, any situation that you're at as a potential opportunity. And the more you do it, the better sort of ear you have or eye you have for opportunities that you otherwise would totally ignore before becoming an entrepreneur. Absolutely.
It kind of just piques your inner, what do you call it? Sensors to realize, there's something. But you have to begin to open and train it so you can notice where there's opportunities and great people all around you.
Exactly. You're essentially creating muscle memory, and it becomes second nature as you do it more and more. Again, to make a gym analogy, right? It becomes easier to lift heavier weights the more you go to the gym. Well, same thing here. It becomes easier to approach people and talk to people and think of things to talk about and identify opportunities and all these things if you just start doing it more and more.
Absolutely. Well, Sergei and Vadim, let people know where they can check out your great show, The Mentors, and find out more about you, work with you guys. How can they do that?
Yeah, they can go to thementors.co. It's thementors.co, or find us on iTunes or Stitcher, any other podcasting platforms, just by searching The Mentors. And we're also fairly responsive if people just want to email us as well. I'm Sergei, SERGEI, at thementors.co, and Vadim is VADIM at thementors.co. We always try to respond to every email.
Well, guys, it's been such a blessing having you out here today. Thank you so much for coming to share your valuable wisdom today on Savvy Business Radio.
Thanks a lot, Christina, for having us.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you, guys.
Savvy Business Radio broadcasts worldwide via a large podcast network, celebrating business owners, entrepreneurs, influencers, and successful individuals. Find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or how to become a guest. Call 732-474-7375 or email Christina at savvybusinessradio.com.